The latest development on the Activision Blizzard walkout and lawsuit is, that no action has been taken to address the 4 specific demands of Blizzard employees, and J. Allen Brack has either stepped down or been fired from Blizzard. According to Blizzard, he stepped down. I'm going to personally add, it sure was really, really close to the earnings call. I think 2 hours before when news broke. That seems a little too strategized.
It was very swift. However, one of the more interesting statements to come out of this involving J. Allen Brack was that he was stepping down as leader of the studio, which is a bit of a terminology change from how they've referred to Blizzard Activision in the past.
I could not think of a single time I've heard Blizzard referred to internally as a studio. Not going to name names, but talk to some internal friends that were like, what? Studio? Raising eyebrows.
There also was a continuation of the downgrade of the leadership role. With Mike Morhaime, we were CEO. With J. Allen Brack, we saw president. And now we have co-lead Jane O'Neill and Mike Ybarra.
Yeah, Jen O'Neill. Jen O'Neill. Yeah. If you're unfamiliar, O'Neill was formerly the head of Vicarious Visions and stayed on with Vicarious Visions when they became part of Blizzard Entertainment. The last game that they released was that very well-made Tony Hawk remake. And then Ybarra previously spent many years at Xbox and has been the executive vice president and general manager of platform and technology at Blizzard since 2019. Blizzard's official statement says that they will, quote, share responsibilities over game development and company operations. So we now have a co-leader set up for Blizzard Entertainment with J. Allen Brack leaving.
And there's a lot of energy behind that Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2. It was the fastest selling game in the franchise history, which the franchise is pretty well known. But Jen O'Neill also just joined Blizzard in January. She was executive vice president of development at Blizzard Entertainment and provided a senior development leadership and support for Diablo and Overwatch franchises. 2 of the big ones we'll talk about in a moment that came up repeatedly in the earnings call. 2018, she received the Great Place to Work for All Leadership Award. She's part of the Board of Women in Games International and is the executive chair of Activision Blizzard's LGBTQ+ employee network.
Yeah. Whereas I already mentioned Mike Ybarra has been with Blizzard since 2019, but before that, spent 22 years at Microsoft. Led a management and development team of several versions of Microsoft Windows before moving on to Xbox. It's also been noted that he attended the walkout last week.
He's been pretty vocal on Twitter just in general as being a gamer. And this has a lot of World of Warcraft fans very excited because he posted pictures of his plus 15 or 15 plus mythic keys that he completed recently, as well as a screenshot of his gaming setup, which has only one screen, which is quite scandalous to video gamers.
If there's one thing I think we can all take away from this is that we should probably not feel too chummy or fan out over developers or studios or heads of studios after all of this?
Definitely. There's a lot of fear of meeting your heroes going on throughout this, and people were looking to Jen O'Neill to set the tone going forward in that investor's call. And one of the very first questions imposed by an investor was, quote, "I'm sure morale is low. I'm curious how Mike and Jen plan to rekindle the pride that Blizzard had for being known for and rebuild that morale. But also at the same time, as you listen to everyone's stories and experiences and make the necessary changes, how does that not affect production going forward?"
Yeah, to which Jen O'Neill responded, Mike Ybarra did not speak up during the investor call, to my knowledge. Wasn't able to find any quotes from him, and the whole thing is recorded and it's publicly available. But Jen O'Neill responded to that saying, quote, "First off, there's nothing more important to me than our people, and I know Mike Ybarra, who is partnering with me to lead Blizzard, feels exactly the same way. Since I joined the studio at the beginning of the year, I've had the privilege of working closer with the Diablo and Overwatch teams. I'm seeing great progress on Overwatch 2 and the multiple games in the Diablo universe. I am constantly inspired by the talented teams, their creative vision, their commitment to putting gameplay first. I went on to say some more things, but that it seems like a very controlled response.
It was a noted dodge of the question, which is, morale is low. How are things going over there?
Yeah. And this leans more into, I think, at least what I've seen, criticisms of Bobby Kotick. We're not going to get into, I'm not going to quote him here. I think it isn't worth a whole lot. It was investor speak. But I did, there's a lot of community critique of this earnings call, focusing on profits and getting product out the door rather than the walkout and the lawsuit at hand, which sadly I think shouldn't be surprising.
It's not, because we're not the customers in this call. And as we cover this further, we're going to only sort of feel that more and more. The box buying, game playing public is not the investors. The investors are buying much higher ticket items, stocks, in mass. And so when Bobby gets up there and talks, he's talking to his customers, which are expecting a certain tone and a certain sales pitch and a very positive outlook for their investment.
Yeah, none of this is a defense, by the way. Here's some choice words we both had for Bobby Kotick on last week's episode. But it's disheartening on a personal level, because Bobby Kotick has only really delivered one official statement on everything, which didn't even really technically suffice to, I wouldn't consider it an apology in any technical definition of what an apology is. Everything that has come out of Activision leadership up to this point has not owned up to everything in the lawsuit.
And it was more of a casual admittance of the facts that had been presented, which was different than the defenses we initially saw out of Blizzard, which was doubling down defense for the upcoming legal action that was being taken place.
Yeah, from Francis Townsend, which we'll talk a little bit about here in a second. It's probably also worth bringing up that there is now what is being referred to as the Activision Blizzard Workers Alliance. And you're going to hear us, as we cover this ongoing story, you're going to hear us reference ABK, which is an abbreviation for Activision Blizzard King. If you follow us if you're used to following us in our coverage of Blizzard, we don't mention King much, but they are also owned by Activision, make Candy Crush and other such mobile games.
Exactly.
But yeah, anyways, this new Activision Blizzard Workers Alliance sent a new letter to leadership of Activision Blizzard, rejecting the choice of the WilmerHale law firm. So this Workers Alliance are the same ones that penned the first letter that had the 4 very specific demands that we covered on last week's episode. But in this new letter, which was addressed to Kotick and executive leadership, the Alliance said that, quote, "In response to our demands, you wrote a letter to employees expressing a commitment to doing a better job of listening. You said you would do everything possible to work with employees in improving our workplace. And yet, the solutions you proposed in that letter did not meaningfully address our requests. You ignored our call for an end to mandatory arbitration. You did not commit to adopting inclusive recruitment and hiring practices. You made no comment on pay transparency." And then as for the choice of the WilmerHale law firm, the Workers Alliance mentioned that while this technically addresses their demand of a, quote, third-party audit of ABK practices and policies, that the ABK Workers Alliance does not support Activision Blizzard's selection of this firm, and they listed 10 unique reasons as to why.
And to summarize those 10 reasons, most of them are just a conflict of interest in that they already have, this is ABK, or this is Activision Blizzard, already has a relationship going back with WilmerHale's agency. They were involved in the diverse candidate search policy and shooting that down. ABK's Executive Vice President of Corporate Affairs, Fran Townsend, has a known relationship with multiple people in WilmerHale's company. And these are all professional previous relationships that they've had over the years, including back in the government work. They have a history of discouraging workers' rights and collective actions. In fact, on their website, this is the WilmerHale's website, they advertise as a union awareness and avoidance company and advertise regularly.
It is under their services section.
Their media portrayal is always shown as the union-busting firm that comes on in to clean up such things.
Yeah.
And they have previously used their tactics on Amazon and Uber.
Mm-hmm. And then on top of this, the Workers' Alliance also noted that, quote, "We are already seeing the effects of this ideology and actions that leadership has taken to restrict our freedom of association since last week, including reducing the size of listening sessions and limiting access to those sessions." If you follow Blizzard employees on Twitter, you've probably seen a lot of chatter about this one particular issue, and being pointed at as a tactic to reduce community strength, essentially. The reasons why the Workers' Alliance does not support WilmerHale's appointment focuses on multiple concerns involving Stephanie Avakian as well. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but this is the WilmerHale partner leading the ABK investigation. Concerns include Avakian's specialization in protecting the wealthy and powerful, WilmerHale's own outline on Avakian's work being, quote, counseling and defending financial institutions, public and private companies, hedge funds, accounting firms, investment advisors, boards, corporate executives, and individuals facing regulatory and criminal investigations and litigation with the government. Again, this is a quote from WilmerHale itself about what Avakian specializes in. And the final point brings up, quote, Stephanie's speech highlighting her success with the SEC, all of her significant examples, including achievements in favor of investors, retail clients, and customers, but does not once mention employees or laborers. We need legal representation. That centers on the concerns of our current employees rather than investors. So, reading through this letter, it is no surprise to me that the employees do not seem particularly happy. There was a lot of community joy around J. Allen Brack no longer being a part of Blizzard when that news broke, Kyle. But also a lot of folks were quick to point out that that was not a demand. The Blizzard employees themselves put together 4 very specific demands. And again, you want to hear all about that, we covered it in great detail last week. None of them was fire J. Allen Brack.
And we continue to hear stories in particular about this divide, which is shown here between the corporate executives and the investors and the employees at Blizzard. In particular, more and more stories have come out this week about HR being a line of defense towards everyone in the upper positions and saying such things as, this is not a fight you want to pick.
Yeah. Also, I meant to add this, and you just reminded me that Blizzard's head of HR is also now gone from the company. This was kind of buried in the hustle and bustle of J. Allen Brack leaving the company this week. It was Jesse Meschuk, formerly Blizzard's senior vice president of HR, is, quote, no longer with the company. It's according to a report from PC Gamer.
Obviously, the employees are still not happy with this because these are the figureheads that are being let go, but they haven't seen any action take place. And this is highlighted by a bizarre happening over on Twitter with Fran Townsend deleting her Twitter account after blocking Blizzard employees over the weekend.
Oh, yes, the cherry on top of a dramatic sundae.
Basically, she was posting some articles from The Atlantic about how the corporate environment, to put lightly, and also pictures of her garden flowers over the weekend. And
Kyle, I believe the article was the dangers of whistleblowing and how it can damage a corporation.
The very same. Well, Blizzard employees, upset about her recent letter, decided to tweet at her why she wasn't doing these sort of things, such as, those are nice flowers. What are you going to do about the situation at Blizzard? and she went on a bit of a blocking spree. But those blocks were directly to her employees underneath her. And so, mysteriously, no longer has a Twitter account. And the official statement was deleting the account was her decision, not Activision's.
I'm sure it was her decision much the same way it was J. Allen Brack's decision to leave Blizzard.
The story is ongoing currently.
Yes. I share the community's fury at the behavior and the public statements from Fran Townsend, and at the same time, can't help but think this is exactly what Fran Townsend was hired for. Was
Seems
to just,
that way.
Yeah, kind of be a mouthpiece for the conglomerate and just toe the company line. It's not an excuse at all. It's just that I'm trying to explain why I'm not surprised by Townsend's behavior. It's why it's most likely why she was hired. This is what she specializes in. So, story's ongoing. Do you think we're gonna get a direct response to the 4 specific demands?
If it were to happen, it'd be after the investors' call. And that time is well, it's now. And so hopefully we'll have something to report on next week when it comes to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I do like that the community at large hasn't let that go.
No, and the community itself is sort of, it's to report on that, the general feeling anyway around the Blizzard communities is that a lot of people have decided to stick around and continue to be a part of their communities that they made the way they want. And these games are what brought them together, not necessarily the company's values that they follow. And in that way, we're seeing a lot of positive things being done. Things like charity runs being made for various, Girls Who Code and things like that throughout the community.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I've seen a lot of positivity in a lot of this very, very negative, hard to digest news. But as we kind of expected, we mentioned this last week, this is going to be going on for a while. This is not the kind of thing where there is a magic wand, as much as I think certain leadership might hope that getting rid of leadership would be a magic wand that just makes everything better again. But that is not the case. And a lot of folks, a lot of Blizzard employees are still holding feet to the coals. So we'll
and that's also our contribution, right? Like, it's easy for us to say, well, we love the game. We're gonna stick it out and help our community through this, but also continue to foster a positive community. But also, it's very easy for these things to be completely forgotten. In fact, that's what they're hoping for. And so by adding this segment to the show, we won't forget. We will continue to report on it. And all we're hearing from every video game studio, even every workplace, is that this is everywhere.
Yes, and yet none of it seems like it's trying to be dismissive, right?
No.
It's because we've spent a lot of time covering the employee demands, Blizzard employees saying what they want. And another thing that they have said that they want that was not part of their letter, because it's just in tweets to the community of gamers, is us not to stop playing. And this isn't meant to defend myself for continuing to play Blizzard games in the wake of all of this, but saying that, yes, I've been at Riot, I've been at Amazon, so on and so forth. These problems exist everywhere. I think we even got into this a little bit last week, that the sense of being on a good team where harassment didn't exist, over and over, it was brought up as feeling lucky. And how dark of a concept that is. And so, again, sorry, I'm getting lost in my personal feelings about all of this, but if I'm, for me, myself, if I'm going to sit here and I'm going to be stoked about a game and I'm going to talk about it, I feel I have to pay my dues by also reporting on the hardships facing the people that are making that game. And so that's why we're going to keep reporting on this.
I think there's also a stance we can take as we pursue looking for all natural games in that way, making sure that the games we purchase are created in a healthy environment not just because it presses all the right buttons for you, because you really want to combine cyberpunk and this other genre you love. Taking a moment to research that company, much like you would when you buy something from the store, a candy bar, banana.
I do not research my bananas.
You don't like the local grown and going on a little Google journey?
Let's go. I do that with honey because I have bad allergies, and local bees helps with that. We'll go with that. We'll go with that. I hope you enjoyed that weirdly personal anecdote at the end of some pretty serious stuff here. So yeah, again, as there are developments, we will cover them here. And feel free to, when you write in with your thoughts into the Nexus about Heroes of the Storm, you can also write in with your thoughts about all of this. ITNcast@gmail.com.